Hello and welcome to another episode of Transcontinental Overload. I'm Stephanie, your host, still in New Jersey. It's September, the leaves are turning color. Yeah, summer is coming to an end, but that's okay. I had a good one. This episode today is actually not just another episode of Transcontinental Overload. It is, for now, the last one, at least in this format. As I've mentioned on here before, I am changing things up a bit. My book is about to come out and it's called Transcontinental Overload as well. So I'm using that name for all things book related from now on. And my podcast will be continued with a different name and focus. I was going to record another episode for you explaining all this in more detail, but I spent the whole of last week in bed with some mystery virus and had absolutely zero energy. So my priority today is to get this episode out to you. And well, I don't want to say save the best for last, but if I say so myself, this episode is magical. And it made me realize again that while I might get tired of podcasting from time to time, I am by no means done. This episode is proof to me that it's so important to talk about life, about families, about parenting, so that everybody out there can hear it and empathize and recognize themselves and, above all, learn and take things away from a conversation that they needed to hear. I'm talking to Tanya Crossman today. Some of you might have heard of her. She is an absolute star in the field of TCK education and research, TCKs being third culture kids, and I will let Tanya explain what exactly that means. She is the co-author of the book Thongs or Flip-Flops, Australian Kids Overseas and What Comes Next, and the author of Misunderstood, The Impact of Growing Up Overseas in the 21st Century. All the links are in the show notes, of course. She has also published loads of material, essays, papers, and is getting ready to write her third book. Tanya works as a coach and mentor with TCKs, but also, and this is so crucial, with the parents who maybe don't even know that they're raising third culture kids and what an impact international life has on those children raised in this way while they live overseas, when they return, and as they mature into adults. Tanya says, and I quote from her website, "I wrote Misunderstood because I saw so much guilt and anxiety among parents who worried about how the choices they had made would affect their children long term. I know from experience that offering parents insights into how their children experience the world can radically change the parent-child relationship. I live for helping parents experience these light bulb moments where they see their family and even their conflicts in a new light and become empowered to make positive changes. I want TCKs to know they are not alone, not the only one to feel the way they do, that their life makes sense in context." End of quote. Our conversation today is incredibly honest because a lot of these issues, such as parent guilt, are discussed in depth in my memoir. And while we were talking, I actually thought all these things that Tanya brings up are things that all parents need to hear, especially parents of teenagers. They are universal issues and we could all benefit from hearing them. International parents have just a few more tasks here than monocultural parents, but essentially, yeah, there's a lot to learn. I think I actually healed a bit during our conversation. Anyway, let's get to it. Let's listen to Tanya's story. Welcome, Tanya, to Transcontinental Overload.
Thank you.
I'm really excited for our conversation today and to hear more about your story, your background, where you are and what you do. Well, we're talking about TCKs, and maybe we should, or maybe I'll let you do that for the listener who doesn't know what a TCK is, because I have it's all over my description and everything. But I'm pretty sure there will be people who don't know what the TCK is.
Oh,
so maybe
course, yeah.
Let's start with that. Let's explain what that is, and then let's jump into your story.
Sounds good. All right. Well, a TCK is a third culture kid. And there's a few definitions that fly around, but here's how I find it most helpful. The three cultures of a third culture kid are not three places, three geographies. It's not this place plus that place equals a mixture. It's three different types of cultures. So it's your legal culture, which is any country that claims you. So it's the place that you have a passport, you have permanent residency, any place that the country says you legally belong to us, you are legally connected to us, in more than a visa that needs to be renewed kind of way. So that's your first kind of culture. And about a third of the TCKs I've worked with and surveyed and interviewed over the years, about a third have more than one legal culture to begin with. Second type of culture is a geographic culture. And that's anywhere that you've had personal interaction with. So these are the countries that you've lived in. And I would also count heritage cultures. So if my parent has immigrated from a country that I have never lived in and I have never had legal citizenship in, then I would still count that as a heritage culture. So again, when I've done surveys and stuff, about 40% of TCKs have had 4 or more geographic cultures and 10% have had 6 or more. Wow. So we're looking at a large number of countries. It's not about 3 countries.
And yeah, so that's why you can't say the 3 cultures. Yeah, so it's nothing to do with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so the third culture is a relational culture or a culture of shared experience. It's people who have lived in between. So who have had this experience of the place where I'm growing up and building memories isn't the place that I legally am connected. And the place that is my parents' country of origin is not my country of origin. Things like that, these splits of being in between. Mm-hmm. Now, the simple definition that gets thrown around most of the time is that a TCK is someone who grows up in a country that their parents aren't from or that they don't have a passport from. And it often gets sort of broadened to include anyone who is cross-cultural. I actually like narrowing the definitions. I actually really like saying cross-cultural kids, CCKs, that's everyone with cross-cultural experiences. We have all these different subcategories. And the reason I like to do that is because once we do that, once we say there's lots of different kinds of ways to have a cross-cultural upbringing, we can go into cross-cultural intersectionality and say that these different kinds of experiences can layer on top of each other. So for example, someone who grows up as the child of an immigrant has a very different experience than me as a TCK living in a country where I'm not a citizen and I'm not expected to stay, I'm expected to leave. Mm-hmm. And both of us have a different experience than someone who grows up as a child of an immigrant and then also goes to another country as a quote unquote foreigner expecting to go back to that country their family immigrated to.
Yeah.
And so when we can sort of separate out all these different kinds of cross-cultural experiences, we can also look at how these stack onto each other when people grow up having 2, 3, 4 different types of cross-cultural experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. That lays it all out. I like it. And I mean, there's so many layers in this. I've always hated to kind of be stuffed into one category because of all the different layers. And that I mean, you've mentioned the word immigrant. There's this other layer of expat. And just this morning I read on Instagram, someone had posted a like really kind of almost vitriolic thing about don't call yourselves expats, you're immigrants, and it's all the and the stigma and all these kind of things. And I was always like, whoa. There's so much more than just these 2 terms for someone who lives in another country. And it always kind of, I don't want to say it annoys me, but it's just, it's so simplified and it's such a multi-layered, complicated topic. And it's like you need, as someone who's moved to another country for whatever reason, you want some kind of label. You want something to explain who you are and what you are, but at the same time, you don't want to be stuffed into a category because they're all so varied. And I'm sure we will talk about all these layers. But I could just, as I read that, I wanted to type a reply right away and say, it's not so easy. It's not so simple. And Some people immigrate and then live there, but they don't want to call themselves immigrant because they don't want maybe for them it was easy, and they assume someone who's an immigrant has had a hard time becoming an immigrant. And it's just all these layers. Or an expat is just someone who sits by the pool because the company pays for everything, and that that sort of thing. And I'm like, no. Expat in the true sense of the word is someone who lives somewhere other than where he was born, or maybe that's even not the right explanation. And anyway, I'm sure we'll get into all of this. So we know now what a TCK is, and you are one of them. And so I would love to hear your story and what made you a TCK.
Before I tell my story, I have to say something about the expat immigrant thing. I'm sure you can slice it in somewhere else.
Oh yeah, and you can tell that this is on my mind just because I just read it like half an hour ago, and something in my head exploded.
Yeah, and I think that explosion is so warranted because these words aren't just definitions; they have so much emotion tied to them. When I tend to be very. Have you heard the stereotype that men's brains are waffles and women's brains are spaghetti?
No, that's a new one.
So like some people have brains that everything's in boxes and some people have brains that everything kind of smooshes together. I'm definitely a waffle brain. Like things go in there nice, neatly categorized boxes. And I'm that way with language, that everything has a specific definition. To the point that when I was younger, people would like give me a hard time for using these big, complicated words. I'm like, but that word means a specific thing, and that's the specific thing I mean. And it took me probably till my 30s to realize that just because I've assigned this dictionary definition to a word doesn't mean that someone else feels the same way about a word.
Yes.
Because I'm thinking about words and they're feeling about words. And words like immigrant and expat and migrant and TCK and CCK, for a lot of people, these are emotionally loaded words. Words like immigrant and expat so often are coded with racism and colonialism and things like this that have such deep roots, so much emotion, that we're not actually having a conversation about vocabulary.
Yes.
And that's where it gets difficult. So I might say, okay, an expat is someone who lives somewhere temporarily and an immigrant is someone who lives somewhere permanently. That's lovely. That's a nice black and white definition, but that's not how people feel about their lives, and
very
that's not
much
how they've experienced other people placing labels on them. And so there is a very big difference between finding your community in people who self-identify as something and having a label slapped on you.
Yeah, very.
So
very
for
true.
many TCKs, that has been a really affirming thing to find a community. Oh, there's other people like me. But there are other TCKs who have had the experience of having a TCK label slapped on them and being told, this is who you are, which is not helpful. So even as we go into talking about this experience, there are people that this has not been a helpful piece of language because of the way it's been used. Any word, any quote unquote label can be helpful or it can be harmful depending on how it's used.
Yeah. And this goes so much beyond this topic anyway. It's labels in general. And I think for people who have, especially for people who have moved and have lived in different countries and cultures, you become hyper aware of labels and what the connotations of those. And so I'm going back to the immigrant and expat thing. I always feel like I don't even want to describe myself as either of them. And when I do use one of them, I always have a caveat. I always have but it's, if you look at it like that, I can't just kind of accept one of the labels or both of the labels, because in effect, I do use both when I describe myself, but always with but I'm not, this or that, and it's just like, oh my God. So someone in those comments this morning, they were like, well, maybe we need a few more different labels where that's reflected. And I don't know, I think we just have to have more
desire for a word that doesn't have all that history and baggage
exactly,
right? Something that's purely descriptive.
Exactly. But then I think, well, what it really needs to happen is just more conversations about it. And to kind of break it up and talk about when I use the word expat, I have to assume that people think of some privileged white person who's, who's been sent by their company. But so I have to go in and then say, well, it's not just that. The whole other category of people fall into this who are not that. And equally, when I say I'm an immigrant to the US, but I'm not going to stay here permanently. So I'm not technically an immigrant in that sense. I haven't left my country to find a better life. And I don't even want the finality of the term. So I have to be like, yes, I guess I'm an immigrant because I have residency and I can live and work, but I don't consider this where I'm going to live for the rest of my life. So that doesn't work for me. But I guess conversations about it and looking at the nuances and opening people's eyes as well in conversations and calling people out on making assumptions, because that's always just don't be misled by a term or a label. And we went into
No, it's good. It's good. It's conversation worth having.
Yes, well, absolutely. And that's, that's why we need to have these and about TCKs. And I don't even know when the term was coined.
TCK? Well, I can give you the whole backstory if you want. I have written a lit review on that multiple times. The different bits of research I've done. The term dates back to the 60s, actually. And when it was initially coined, it was research being done in a population of American missionaries living in India. That was the primary context. And there was kind of this culture of the Americans living in India and the Indians working with them who are also kind of outside of their typical context. But they were specifically looking at the children of the American missionaries as the prototype. First look at the third culture kid. So that's the 60s. The term keeps developing within the missionary circles. In sort of the 80s, there's now kind of a basic definition circling put together at a conference. Late 90s, the third culture kid growing up among worlds is first published, the sort of TCK Bible. But again, a lot of the work being done is still in the missionary community because even to this day, other sectors are far less willing to put their research dollars and their investment in family care behind this. So it really wasn't until
interesting.
I would say maybe 2005, 2010, we started seeing much more literature outside of that world from different points of view, different perspectives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So the whole concept of a TCK and what that is has more recent origins, but there have been TCKs for a while, really, if you think about the missionaries, for example. So who would move with their whole family. So would you say that the children of those missionaries were maybe the first TCKs?
Well, we have accounts from far back, even in the corporate world, but the foreign service, you're going back generations. In military, you're going back generations. When with the research that we've been doing, where we're comparing sectors, we have a lot of people in the older generations when it comes to foreign service and military in particular. We tend to be heavy on older generations because these days it's much more infrequent that companies send a whole family. I mean, that governments send a whole family with the military. They just deploy the individual service person and not the family.
Yeah, that's so true.
So that's
and I mean, it's just thinking back to colonization as well. I mean, I mean, those would definitely never describe themselves as immigrants, I guess. I mean, that's
but you think about some of the classic literature, The Secret Garden, that was a TCK. Yes. And the accompanying book, the Little Princess, they're TCKs. Yes. There's lots of classic British literature where the main characters are TCKs who are kind of dumped in England after growing up in India or
with
other British
absolutely
colonial places.
no appreciation for what a TCK's issues are, because it just didn't exist, and they were kind of expected to still be fully English when they came back. They were just fully expected to be just like everyone else, and so that's a very interesting point. Let's go into your story, and where did it all start? And
finish our huge long tangent, get back to where we started. Yes, where did my TCK story start? Well, it starts on a plane from Sydney to San Francisco when I am 15 months old. And my poor mum had, tested out this medicine to make sure it made me sleepy. And then instead I went absolutely psycho feral and wouldn't sleep the entire flight and started running into first class the whole time and introducing myself to Lena Horne, apparently, multiple times. Oh my gosh, my poor parents were so embarrassed. But anyway, I was cute and got away with things because I was 15 months old. And so, back then you had to stop in Hawaii. So sad. But we end up eventually in Raleigh, North Carolina, and lived there for a few months. And so I basically started speaking in Raleigh, North Carolina instead of Sydney, which is where I was born. So we were only there for a few months and then came back again. Was there until I was 8, then moved to a different part of Australia. Was there for a few years, then moved to Connecticut. Was there for a couple of years, then moved back to Australia. Was there until I was mostly finished university. And then I did my last year of university in China, as one does. And after I'd been there a year and a half, I did a 1-year diploma at a Chinese university and then got a job in a publishing company as an intern, as one does. But then I started volunteering with a group of TCKs. And very quickly, we just felt so at home, and I didn't know why, because I'd never heard of a TCK. And even working with them, it took me a couple of years to realize that I was one, even once I had the language, to connect my experiences to their experiences. But I just so quickly felt at home and felt like this was where I wanted to be. And within a few months, I was hooked. And that's what I did. I worked, but I stayed there so that I could keep doing this volunteer work until eventually it took over my life and became what I did. And I was suddenly speaking at events and writing a book, and then my whole life got consumed by this TCK thing, and it's been 20 years, and this is what I do now. It's your identity that you didn't even know you had. Literally, I had been working with TCKs for 2 years before someone gave me the TCK book, the TCK Bible. And as I was reading through a section on repatriation, this is really all I remember from first reading that book, was reading about repatriation and going tick, 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 tick. Oh my gosh, that's what happened to me. Because I'd had a really rough repatriation into Australia at 15 years old. Going between Australia and the US, you're switching mid-year. I had finished grade 8, started grade 9, moved to the US, finished grade 8 again, the last 6 weeks of the school year, I think, and then started summer holiday again, done grade 9, half of grade 10, moved countries again and started grade 11.
That's at that age, and this just makes me scream inside, because this is what I did to my oldest, who they were born in the UK, then we moved to the US, and then we went back to the UK when she was around 15. And then after a year, we went back to the US. And there was also this whole having to repeat a school year, or we sent her back a year in the UK because it was GCSE stuff. And I was like, well, you need more time for that. I hadn't planned to come back to the US. So I was like, let's do that and set up. And then we moved back because things changed. And then all of a sudden she was back in the US and had to kind of go back into all. And so I still have
trauma.
Just it's absolute trauma. And it's, obviously for her the worst, but for the whole family.
And making those decisions is so difficult, because
so difficult, because
you're changing curriculums, you're changing school years, and we got no help. I mean,
Yeah.
I ended up a year and a half behind in maths because the schools actively worked against getting me where I needed to go. My first, when I mean, partly I go in for the last 6 weeks of middle school, the last 6 weeks of eighth grade. No one
we did
really
that
paid
as well.
attention. My
No.
assessment for maths was I got walked into a classroom. They said, "Have you done this before?" I said, "No." They're like, "Great, this is the class you're in." That was it. That was the only assessment that I ever had done. And it just so happened, strangely enough, that assessment was not accurate. But when I got to grade 9 the next year, they said, "Well, you've been put in this level, so you have to be in this level," even though this level was incorrect and I had done everything in the textbook.
Oh, especially with
And when I
maths.
finally convinced them to give me a test to test out of algebra, I got given the wrong test. Still got 77%. I needed 80% to be moved up. I got 77% on the wrong test. They wouldn't give me the right test and I got stuck there. They wouldn't move me up into the honours class because you have to do a bridging class for that and you can only do that in the summer. So I just did nothing, wasted my time for an entire year. It was
It's it makes my blood boil because those things are also easy fixes if someone just spend some more time thinking about it. And
the
maths
maths department head who was responsible for that mess was not there the next year. So either he got fired or he knew he was retiring and didn't care, because I wasn't the only one who got stuck that
Why
year.
is it always the maths teachers? I feel like I constantly hear about maths teachers who don't care and then are close to retirement, and it seems to be, and
Well,
especially
hopefully that generation is going and it's going to be easy for the next lot, right?
I mean, oh my God, especially for maths, because I feel like this is you cannot miss anything, because if you do, and if you, then
and that's
you
what
just
happened
kind of,
to me. Is I missed it. I never caught it up. I didn't know how to ask for help yet. And so I just
you don't, because
stumbled my way through grade 11 maths and then refused to take grade 12 maths, which meant there were a whole bunch of degrees I couldn't do if I wanted to. I precluded myself from that. It all worked out. It was all good. It's all fine. And it's still a bit of a joke in our family about how much maths I do not know how to do, especially since my sister is the head of maths at her high school where she works.
Yeah, of course she is.
There was one summer holiday where she was literally like dipping water and drawing on the slate at the edge of the pool, trying to teach me like trigonometry.
So how much older or younger is your sister?
I'm the oldest. I have two sisters. One's 2 years younger, one's 4 years younger.
So they did some of this TCK experience as well.
Yes, they did.
So it's like, but it just shows, because I was just going to say, I mean, maths, yes. So it's a tricky subject because you have to kind of follow because it's quite linear what you have to do in terms of it builds on what you learned last year and all that. And I didn't move at that time at all, and I still completely failed maths because I just couldn't do it. And I think after it's like 7th grade maths, I was just done with it, and I couldn't. And I also didn't know how to ask for help. And my parents got me a tutor, but they also didn't really know what the problem was. No one really cared. But I remember from from my children's transfer between like the UK and the US, how my daughter was always really good at English and writing essays and stuff. So she had best marks in the US, and then she moved to the UK, and then all of a sudden she failed. And I'm like, what's going on? Until I realized what the problem was. No one had thought about the fact that she might have learned to write essays differently, because in the US you do it differently. You type it on a keyboard. In the UK you're still like writing, like handwriting, and you build it differently. And she just didn't know. So she was writing how she'd been taught in the US, and they didn't even, there was no consideration
to teach,
until I went to the teacher and said, do you want to look at this? This is how, because I researched it, and I was like, this is how they do it in the US, and I think this is the issue. And the teacher was like, oh my God, yes, of course, you're so right. And I'm like,
but you had to do that work.
But I had to do that work. Yeah. And no, I was never the most hands-on mom in terms of school, because it was like, I hated school. So for me, my children going through school was just triggering me on all sorts of levels. But that was a point where I'm like, am I the only one seeing this? And to me, it made so much sense and then the same thing happened when we came back to the US after the year in the UK, because then the teachers, because then she was doing stuff the UK way, and then teachers were just like, what is this? Yeah. And these little things, you think it sounds like, oh, well, it's school, everyone hates school and it's bad.
But it's
those
not
things, are not little. Yeah.
When you're a child, you spend majority of your life in school. And when it's not going well, it is such a hit to your self-esteem,
Yeah.
especially if you have an identity as someone who is good at school, and then you move
Yes.
countries and you're suddenly not someone who's good at school, and you haven't changed.
Yeah. And you haven't got anyone to talk to about this because no one understands. And that's where you have to find people who've gone through
you have
the same
no
experience.
idea what's wrong because you haven't done anything different.
Yeah.
You're doing exactly what you did before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we see this happen in cultural ways where classroom behavior, classroom expectations differ from school to school. And so you're acting in the same way you did before, but suddenly you're in trouble for those actions. You're doing schoolwork the same way, but it's not getting A's anymore, things like that. I mean, it's a big deal for TCKs.
Absolutely. And even just so coming back to that example again, in the UK, it's completely normal. So you have 70%, and that's really good. Or you you're not expected to be, if above 90, oh my God. And in the US, it's like, if you're not 95 or 95 or more, you're not, it's bad. And if you don't know that, I mean,
exactly.
It's like, what is, like you said, this kid who's always had like 98% and
getting 82,
and it's all of a sudden or even less, and it's just like, I'm failing, and it's not. No, this is completely normal. And in the UK, the attitude is completely different. It's like no one will ever get anything above 95.
Be thinking that too.
Yes,
the parents can be thinking what's wrong and thinking the kid's not working hard enough because the parents don't know either.
Yeah, and then communication fails. Yeah, communication fails because then your child will shut down and not even talk about the difficulties, and it just goes.
Oh, I've had many experiences of working with families where communication shutdowns have happened.
And it is, and it's another thing that is when a family moves, from to another country, and the preparation, even if you get a coach beforehand, even if your company provides some sort of, cultural education,
which is so rare these days.
It's very rare. And also this never includes stuff like that. It's all just, make it up as you go along and just go with the flow. But if it happens, if all this happens.
It's all the things you don't know that you don't know, right?
Yeah. Yes. And then it hits you, and it hits especially then your child. And as a parent, so I can talk from the parents' experience, because you rack your brain and you're like, what is going on? Why is my child becoming more and more sullen and sad, and I mean, it's horrendous, and it would be so easily solved if people would actually just take a little bit of a closer look and also talk and encourage and ask the right questions.
See, I say I've been working with TCKs and global mobile families for 20 years. The first sort of 7, I was primarily working with young people, with teenagers, tweens. And about 7 years in, I switched to working primarily with parents, teachers, caregivers, and have maintained really a real passion and heart for parents because, partly as a function of my age, I was older and my friends were now parents, had teenagers, some of the teenagers I was working with even. And I was starting to hear the other side of this story and realizing that all of the parents, not some, all of the parents were feeling anxiety and guilt and stress and shame in some cases, and this kind of nervousness about, have we done the wrong thing? How is this going to work out? Have we screwed up our kids? Because they had no idea what this journey would look like in the end, because they were flying blind. When you are parenting in your own community that you grew up in, you have a picture of what this looks like. You're in a community of people who are living the same way, whose kids are growing up the same way. You can see the forward trajectory. When you are living internationally, and especially when you're living in transient communities, you don't have that picture. You are just flying blind, doing your best and hoping it's going to be okay. And the fear that so many parents are paralyzed by is huge. Yeah. And there's a hesitance to even speak about it, because if I speak about it, it might come true.
Yeah.
Or I might have to feel these things that I'm terrified of that go bump in the night.
I just wrote a whole book about this. I literally did. It's all about moving and then the kids' breakdowns in the teen years. My
Yeah.
feeling of guilt and have I ruined their lives? Have I messed
Yeah.
everything up? Have I failed as a parent? And I've written it all out because I thought this is so many people must be feeling this way, and
Yeah.
there is no way to talk about it. So I'm what I've tried to do, and a book's not out yet. It's still
Coming.
we're working on the cover right now, but it's exactly about that. And then eventually my own mental breakdown because I couldn't handle the guilt and my own issues with the moving and trying to keep it all together for everyone.
Yeah.
Because it's like because that's what you as a parent you feel like I have to, this is my role as a mom to keep everything together,
make sure
and then
everyone else is okay.
Absolutely. And so this is what you're taught,
last.
constantly trying to make it all work while also thinking it's my fault that it's this bad, so I must work extra hard to make everyone happy. And then you completely abandon yourself.
Yeah.
Because there's so much self-loathing, you can't untangle it all. It just becomes this massive kind of just horrible state of being. And of course then you fall apart yourself, and that doesn't serve anyone. And so it's just, there's so much work to be done. So I'm like, God, I wish I had met you like years ago and read your book sooner, and just to kind of have the awareness and the language to use as well, and to use with my children as well, because it's because as a parent you're limited, because like you said, you have to make it up. You have to kind of look around you and you're like, there's no blueprint, and you hear all these things from different people in different countries, from your people back home who are bringing their kids up in an environment that
their situation doesn't map fully to yours. Even other expats, their situations don't map fully to yours.
Absolutely.
There is a lot of making it up as you go along, and that's scary. A huge part of my work and why I do what I do is for those parents.
Yeah.
Because I suddenly realized I'm not parenting teenagers, but I've been listening to these teenagers for so many years. I have a perspective that these parents don't. I've been working with these teenagers longer than they've been parenting these teenagers. I know some of these things that seem obvious to me aren't obvious to them. And I started talking about this. And so often just a couple of little pieces of information can make a huge deal. And like you said before, a little tweak, like showing a teacher the way essays are taught in America, can like change everything. Little tiny things can make a huge difference. That's why I wrote Misunderstood. It's why I do the research that I do now with TCK training. Is often little things make a huge difference, because when we know something, we can act on it. When we know better, we can do better. And one of the biggest things for me is that repeatedly, in large survey after large survey after large survey, the majority of TCKs are thankful to have been raised internationally.
Yes.
Even though at the same time, they will tell you the hard stuff.
Yeah. And that is the crazy thing, isn't it? Because I mean, I think as a parent, again, coming from the parent perspective, you do these things, you move, you take your kids out, you are aware of that certain different difficulties that might arise. And because I had already left my country once before, so I was call myself a double expat, because I left Germany to go to the UK and then to the US. So I knew, culture shock and all these things. But then you think eventually this is going to be amazing for the kids, this experience of, because I mean, let's face it, it's living in other cultures is the biggest gift and the biggest and the most amazing thing for someone, to see things from a different angle, get out of your comfort zone, all these things, all the like dealing with hardships and overcoming, being the new person, all these kind of things are all very much helpful in the shaping of a person. And there's so many skills that you learn along the way, that as a parent you think this is an amazing experience, so eventually it'll be worth it. But when you're in the thick of it, and your kid is struggling and your kid is telling you, I hate you, I hate what you've done, you've ruined my life, all these kind of things. And I'm not saying that teenagers don't say these things to their parents when they haven't moved, you know.
Yes. I mean,
and there
parenting teenagers is hard no matter where you
and there
are.
is a lot of shared experience even when you haven't moved, and things can go wrong. And like I said earlier, my lack of math skills was, you know, that didn't have anything to do with moving. But it's that you have that hope, and then when things go wrong, it can just derail you completely, and then you question everything. And it's that point where you really need to have someone tell you, this is okay, you haven't failed, you still keep believing in the overall vision.
Yes.
And work on your own resilience and your own strength. That's the only thing. And like you said earlier, so you've seen a different side to things, because you've talked to the teenagers, and the teenagers tell you things that they would never tell their parents, because they see their parents struggle in another culture as well, and they see their parent worry about them, and they don't want to do that, because they're like, well, I don't want to say anything because they thought they were doing a good thing by moving us, and so if I say I'm struggling, that's gonna make them feel bad. I don't want my parents to feel bad. So it's this kind of constant.
Have you read that in my book, or are you not to get to that part yet? Because I literally have that in there of it came up multiple times in interviews that I would have TCKs say that I will tell my parents everything except when I'm feeling bad, because I don't want them to feel guilty. Yeah. Because I love my life. Yeah. And I don't want them to feel guilty about bringing me here. So I don't want to tell them the hard stuff.
Yes. It's so, I mean, this is just me, you know, my experience. And I'm like, but when you're in the thick of it, and you just have this big tangle of guilt and shame and anger and resentment towards your partner or whatever it is, and then you can't think straight, and your children experience that, and your children see that. So again, they're they keep their mouths shut.
I mean, on the other side, I've seen TCKs who didn't want to tell their parent how much they were enjoying where they live, because they saw that their parent was not doing well.
Yeah.
Right? If they, especially families who have had multiple assignments, and they're like, this country, mom is not liking this country, so I can't show her how happy I am here, because that's going to upset her.
Yeah.
Right? I've seen that too.
This hits so hard, you saying that right now, and I haven't really even considered that, but that is so true, because I went through stages as well where we had just moved somewhere and I wasn't liking it, and I was very much like, oh, let's leave here, this is not good for us, and voicing these things. And with hindsight, like, I shouldn't have done that, you know, because it's exactly setting the stage for them to be like, ooh, she doesn't like it, so I can't say what I really think. And there's so many layers to this, and parents need so much help with this.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the biggest things that we've been working on research wise is looking at positive childhood experiences. So protective factors that are proven to buffer kids from difficulties in life, right? And right now I am finalizing the research that's going into our newest report that's coming out in September. And it's been so encouraging to work on, because over and over and over again, we see that when these positive experiences are in place, kids do better. I mean, I'm talking in terms of lifestyle factors, lower rates of smoking and alcohol abuse and everything like that. Lower rates of mental health concerns, both experienced and diagnosed, better, more positive views of their childhood in general, fewer struggles in adulthood, just general things that are associated with TCK struggles. So many things, and they're all associated with these positive experiences, and none of them are like magic, difficult things. They're just ordinary life things. 3 things in the home, 4 things in the community. And I love talking about this so much, because I feel like it's the most breathe a big, deep sigh of relief hope for parents, because it's like, oh, I can do that. You know?
Yeah. It's achievable. It's nothing. It's not
achievable.
You don't have to
the
study.
Statistics showing what an impact it has.
Yeah.
Like, it's as simple as your kids knowing that their family has their back, and that they're safe and protected in the home, that their emotions are heard by their parents, that they have friends, supportive friends throughout childhood, and that they feel a sense of belonging in high school specifically, that they have 2 non-parent adults who take a genuine interest in them. And the bar for that is much lower than most adults expect. That they're part of a community with traditions that they enjoy. Like, this is it. Really simple family and community connectedness.
And I mean, essentially exactly the same things that families who haven't moved would want for their children, and exactly the same things
where the research started. It started in monocultural communities, and we've seen it be so important for TCKs too.
It takes a village to raise your kids, and
yes,
it absolutely does.
Yeah.
And no, I mean, the
tricky thing is when you move, some of this stuff becomes less intuitive and less automatic, and we have to work a little bit harder to make sure it happens.
Yeah. But
for
it's
example,
not unachievable.
Feeling safe at home looks different in different countries.
Yeah.
So repeatedly I find things like kids who grow up in like China and Cambodia, where I've spent a lot of my adult life. There's a compound with walls and barbed wire and guards and bars on windows, and kids grow up like that. That's what safety and being protected in the home looks like to them. And they move somewhere like where I am now in Australia, where there's not even a fence out the front, let alone guards or walls or anything. And they feel so unsafe because just anybody could walk up to the door. And the parents are like, oh, phew, I can relax now. There's no safety issues. And the kids are like, oh.
Yeah.
And you have to have conversations because safety looks different in different places.
Works both ways, right? It's like the family who moves from, I don't know, downtown Chicago to somewhere rural Germany, where the kids are out all day and cycling around, and no one worries about them getting on the local bus and everything. And for the kids grow up with their German friends, where that's totally normal. They're so independent very early on.
Yes.
And the American parents are freaking out because they can't judge it. They can't be like, is this really safe? Is this what, because they have no parameter to
exactly
to compare it to,
so
because
it's up with kids and parents with different views of what safety is. And therefore parents not knowing that they need to have a conversation about safety, because to them it's obvious that this place is safe.
There's so many issues like that where it's all. So let's just generally, you could say raising teenagers in another country that's another level. It is on another level, but essentially the factors you need to raise them are all the same. They're exactly the same. And if you're aware of that, then, and you kind of find ways and help to tackle those, then then it's fine. But if you have to probably think about these things more than maybe other parents do, because you have to be more aware. You have to have that kind of, you can't just make it up as you go along.
Right. You can't just make it up as you go along. Largely because it looks so different in each place that it's not intuitive. It's not just going to happen unless you think about it. For example, having supportive friends throughout childhood. Well, if you move to a place where they don't have peers who speak the same language as them, that's not going to be automatic. One of the things we found in our 2021 survey was that even among kids who said they most of the time played with kids who did not speak a language they spoke fluently, right? So they were playing in a language that they were comfortable in, but not fluent in. So even amongst those kids, they said the language they were fluent in. So to have that close, supportive friendship, language really matters.
Yeah.
Because there's a limitation on your ability to share your true self if you're not
Oh,
in a language you're fluent in.
yes, absolutely.
So you might be playing and having a great time, but you're not going to have the supportive friendship without the language.
No. And we all
So
know what
things
that
like that.
feels like when you want to crack a joke, but you don't have the words to do it. So you keep
Oh my gosh,
quiet.
I
And then it's
still
like,
remember that moment of
oh,
euphoria, the first time I was successfully sarcastic in Chinese and made my coworkers laugh.
yeah,
Like, it was
victory.
such a milestone moment for me.
Well, because it's so much part of your personality,
Yes.
and you want to be as genuine as you can be, and you want people to see all of you. And but that's why
Yes.
I'm always like, for parents, when you move to a country where you don't speak the language, and like the kids will learn it because they go to school. I don't need to because I've got my little expat, talking about expats again, little expat circle, and I'm always like, no, you must learn the language. You must, because you have to show your kids as well that you are diving into the culture with them. And you have to, I think that's just I will never understand when people just reject that part of the experience. And now obviously there are differences in situation, and I mean the biggest issue for like immigrants from war countries, and they go somewhere and then it's not so easy to learn a language, and it is much easier to learn English, for example, than it is to learn German, for example. And I will maintain this because people are always like, oh, it's like everyone can learn languages, and
Chinese for that matter, yeah.
oh, or Chinese,
I always
yeah.
felt guilty. People be like, oh my gosh, how long did it take you to learn your Chinese? And I'm like, it was not a normal situation. I've been learning it since I was 11 and I did it full time at university. This is not
So that you can't compare it.
Your couple hours a week and mine is not, yep.
No, and it is so hard to learn a language. It is really hard and takes a lot of time and effort, but it's the willingness and the kind of the necessity, I think, is there. And so for me, and that's also
and the willingness to be a fool, because
yeah.
to get good at a language, you've got to be willing to make a fool of yourself and make mistakes in other people and be
and
corrected.
for your kids to see that
hard.
For your kids to see that is so important. And then,
well, and if your kids are going to school in your target language, very quickly they will outdo you and they will be the ones correcting you
of
and
course,
telling you how bad your accent is.
Yeah.
So
that
also will kill your pride very quickly.
Yeah. But that's all part of that experience.
And I think that embracing that is part of that language journey.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. But yeah. Oh gosh. Where do we pick up now?
I don't know. We've just gone all over the place.
We've just gone all over the place. But
what was I talking about that got us on this? Oh, I was talking about the friendship thing. That's how we got started on this. Well, the other one I see a lot is parents who think that their little kids don't need friends. Like they're living in a more remote area. And
they have their siblings.
And they just think it's not really that important. They've got their siblings. But it is important. And being intentional. Like if your kid was at school and had no friends, you'd be concerned.
Yeah.
And we should still be concerned. Like just because you're in a different country doesn't take away, like we said, they're the same factors everywhere. They're the same factors everywhere. And so we want to be looking at those same things, even if we're in a different environment.
Yeah. It's very hard sometimes as a parent when you are somewhere and you don't know the culture well, or you feel like it's out of your control because your child goes off and meets people and they are different, or their kind of their socialization is different, the education systems are different, and as a parent you when you feel like, oh, I need to protect. And then your kid, as a typical teenager, will rebel, be like, these are my friends. You can't tell me who my friends should be or shouldn't be. And so I can see it from both sides.
Oh yeah,
how tough that can be. But like you said, it is essential. You can't. The nuclear family it's not enough.
No.
You have that, I think, from the outset, because I remember that well. The four of us moving, and we're like, yeah, we've got each other, so that's good. And the kids decided they're going to be more than just siblings; they're going to be best friends as well. And then I'm thinking, yeah, but this is not going to be enough. We need to. This is good. This is your basis, but you need to. And luckily, I mean, both my kids are very very sociable. So they made their friends. But I see that hesitation sometimes as well of putting yourself out there and letting your kids run wild and make friends, where you're like, I have no control over this. This is, again, I guess parents all over the world, parents of teenagers all over the world will empathize. So but yeah, the intentionality, is that even a word? Of being a global parent you have to be very switched on and aware. And so I love that you work with both the kids and the parents. And do you want to talk a little bit more about your, like, what your work looks like on a daily basis? And
it really depends. I mean, right now, at TCK Training, I'm Director of Research and International Education. So I split my time between creating our research surveys, doing the data analysis and preparing that for sharing with the wider world. Most of our stuff we do without a paywall because we want people to actually use that data. But we do extra stuff that's more in depth that people can pay a little fee to learn a bit more. And then the rest of my time I'm working with international schools. So creating curricula and training courses, traveling to visit international schools and speak and work with parents and teachers and students and everybody. And it's basically the perfect job. Our company is spread all over the world, literally in and from all 6 continents. So my schedule is a mess. I have meetings at all hours of the day and night, mostly night. Because I would rather stay up and meet until midnight than have to get up at 6 and 7 in the morning like some of my colleagues do. Yeah. So that's how we do it.
So you're a night owl.
Definitely a night owl. But yeah, it's great. It's great fun. Right now, being the Northern Hemisphere summer, I'm sort of more focused on the research side of things, but also working on a couple of curricular projects. So one that's an Asian context version of a program that we already have up and running. We're creating this new version of it. Working on our volume 2 of our social emotional learning curricula for international schools. That's really
amazing.
fun.
Yes, amazing.
About to get started writing the volume 3, which will come out next year. So we're releasing one volume each year. Last year we released our transition one. This year it's emotional regulation. Next year is going to be identity integration. Yeah. It's all about what are the things that TCKs most need to work on, and creating a super easy open and go that international schools can just pick up and use.
You know what? I wish this was something that they would teach at all the regular schools as well. Yeah. And bringing it back to it's all the same issues. And this is such a,
like we say a lot, what's good for TCKs are good for everyone.
Yes,
we literally have a sister company called the Unstacking Company, where we take some of the same stuff, same principles, and we're sharing that in local schools in the US, in counseling centers, in other places too. We've just created one of our certifications specifically for not global mobile audiences, because everyone needs this.
Yeah, everyone, absolutely. Yeah, I love it. So what do your parents feel about you working in this field and how you started doing what you're doing? How was their, I know it's a very personal question, but how was their take on it? Because I mean, obviously they must have gone through the guilt and you must have seen it firsthand because it's your experience essentially.
Well, some of it I have learned more about since doing this work. There's all these stories have come out because they've seen their own stories reflected in my work.
Yeah.
Which has been just priceless for me.
Yeah.
So I think at first they kind of didn't really get what I was working on until my book came out. When a bit before that, around the time I started working on it, my mum goes and creates lunches for this group called, it's the Thursday Friendship Group. And it's all the oldies at this little church. They say it's for everyone over 55, but I think the youngest people there are 75. And they get together like once a week to have lunch and to learn something new, which I just love. And
Fabulous.
they always invite people to come and teach them something they don't know. So like one time they had my dad,
Such a good mindset.
you know, a tech executive in his past life, to come in and teach them about computers, which I thought was brilliant.
Yeah.
They had my mum come in and said, just teach us something about China, because they knew she had a daughter in China. And so she went in and she brought in photos and stories about the trip that I took them through Yunnan, Sichuan, a few years back. And after that one, they invited her to come back a few months later and said, why don't you tell us a bit about what your daughter does? At which point she goes, I should find out what my daughter does. And so asked me all these questions about TCKs. And I was in the process of starting to put together what would become my first book, Misunderstood. So I'm like, well, as I'm starting to write this stuff, I'll just send you what I'm writing. And so she got some of the early drafts of me putting together the core of what would become the book, so that she would know what I did. And she quickly became like, I feel like an evangelist for TCKs. She finds TCKs everywhere and she tells them they're TCKs. Did you know you're a TCK? My daughter wrote the book on that. Like,
Fabulous. Yeah.
I mean, just hilarious. Once the book came out, like dad got it, dad caught it. And he's not quite as bad as my mum, but he also finds TCKs everywhere now too. They sat down and went through all these like slides with me for what's becoming the research report now. They find the research interesting. My mum was a research scientist back before I was born, so she always said I should be a researcher. I said
they
no,
must have felt this kind of like, oh my God, why didn't we know this? And why didn't we look at it like this?
Right, yeah, but what's fascinating to me is how many times in Misunderstood or in things I've done since, my mum's gone, oh, I recognize that story.
Yeah.
Not because it was a story I'd written from our family, but because something the same happened in our family. There was one where I wrote about a family where one of the kids was, and I'm pretty sure I wrote this in Misunderstood, one of the kids in the family was really upset when they first moved, like so upset. Mum was really worried about how she was going to handle it. And by the end of their time in that country, that kid was the one who had connected the most deeply in the local culture. And my mum's like, that was your sister. But I didn't know that because I was 6 weeks behind our family in arriving. Just because of circumstances, I arrived 6 weeks behind the rest of them. So I didn't know that for the first month we were there, my sister was crying herself to sleep every night in the room above my parents' room. And my mum is going up to comfort her every night thinking, have we made a mistake? Did we do the wrong thing? We can't take it back now. What do I do?
Yeah.
Until one day it clicked and she was okay. And she was the one that was so deeply connected there. And what had happened in this other family that may well be what happened with my sister too, is that because she processed her grief so openly and in such a raw way, she was then free to connect, right? She let go.
She worked through it. And sometimes...
And it's why I tell parents so often, like, when you see the big emotions, this is a healthy thing.
Yes.
It's when your kid is yelling at you and blaming you, that sucks and it's hurtful and there's nothing that's going to make that feel better, except that's actually a positive sign.
It's a natural reaction.
Because it means they feel safe with you.
Yes. Yeah.
If they didn't feel safe with you, they wouldn't be showing you that anger and that frustration and that hurt. Believe me, they're very good at hiding it. If they're showing it, no matter how painful it is that they're showing it, it's because they feel safe to show it to you, because they know that they will still be loved after they are acting in an unlovable way.
That's amazing. That's an amazing thing I think a lot of people need to hear. Absolutely. Oof.
And it's absolutely what you want. You want to be a home that is safe for every emotion.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even though that is messy and exhausting.
Yes.
And makes you feel like a failure as a parent. It's what kids need more than anything, especially TCKs, who are so liable to bottle all those emotions up.
Yeah. For all the reasons we mentioned earlier, you don't want to upset anyone. Not your new teachers, not your new friends. You don't want to be...
just you're exhausted saying goodbye again.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go through all those emotions again. Yeah. Having a home where your parents will actually show their own emotions. So you know that you have permission to share your emotions, and that there is space for you to share your emotions, and that when you share your emotions, you're not shut down. Someone listens and says it's okay that you feel that way. Actually, that's a perfectly natural way to feel. Can I get you a glass of water or a piece of cake or whatever it is that they need in that moment?
Yeah. So true. And again, I think this is something that all parents need to hear.
Exactly.
Because regardless of where you are and whether you've moved or not, I think this is such a beautiful thing to, I feel like, end our conversation on, because couldn't have said it in a better way. This is absolutely stunning. Yeah. Thank you so much, Tanya. This was great.
You're so welcome. This has been so fun.
Yeah, well, it's such a topic so close to my heart. And so when I read Misunderstood, I don't know, a few years ago now, but and I will put the link in the show notes and all that for people. I don't need to go into it now, because I think people have got a very good idea of what they might find. I would recommend it to anyone moving and anyone parenting as well. I feel like there's so little generally about parenting, especially teenagers, just in general. I always used to read so many things about, or people talking about bilingual children and how hard it is, but they're always talking about little children, and you just speak the language, it's fine, they pick it up. As soon as kids hit teenage years, you can't find any literature, you can't find anything. People don't share. People here in the US, people are very much like, it's achievement driven. So people talk about their children's achievements and what teams they made it on and what college they've been accepted to, and all this sort of stuff. And no one talks about what a mess it is to raise teenagers.
Yeah.
So I'm extra grateful for people like you who do this work.
Like, the mess is good, right? What I see so often in TCKs is the ones who don't go through any of their mess younger. They still have to go through their mess. Yeah. They're just going to do it later when they don't have the support of their family and their community around them.
Those are the moments when I'm like, I'm so glad we did this global thing, because I can see with my kids now, college age, and they go off and they do stuff and they handle their big emotions. They know how to do this. They know what it feels like to feel lonely and bad and sad and all that. And they're like, oh, I've been here before, I can do this. So many of their peers.
That is literally the definition of resilience.
Yeah, right?
Literally, resilience is going through hard things and knowing I can do this because I've been here before.
Yes, exactly. And because you were able to handle it or experience it where you were surrounded. I don't want to say always supportive and always perfectly, but at least it's been a topic that you talked through it with someone. And this is whether it's your parents or a therapist or a friend or whatever, but you've been able to verbalize it.
Support.
And so many kids don't have that, and then struggle going away for college and then really fall apart at the first, like, oh my God. And
I mean, it's literally what resilience building is all about. You don't build resilience unless you go through hard things.
Yeah, but it's not the kind of...
If you go through a hard thing and you have support, then you build resilience. If you go through a hard thing and you don't have support, that leads to emotional fragility.
And all you hear is pull yourself together.
So that's not support, right? So if you don't get support when you're going through something hard, that leads to emotional fragility. If you have support when you're going through something hard, that builds resilience. If you don't go through something hard, there's no opportunity to build resilience. So there's no resilience either. So we actually need some level of hardship, but support that goes alongside it. And so actually, when kids have a life that has no hardship and then they're sent out into the world alone, it's a recipe for danger and drastic problems.
But so many parents also, and this is taking it into a whole other direction, so many parents just freak out at the mess of the teenage years. And I think it's just, it's such a great time of someone's life, but also the messiest and the hardest and the worst.
I love the mess.
It's just, but it's like, embrace the mess. Really, you have to, and kind of, So I just wish, but this is our Western societies are so geared towards perfection and performance and facade, and it's just anyway,
And the
different
international world,
conversation.
and the international
Oh
school
yes.
world and the expat world are very much build on that perfectionism thing. And TCKs will do it to themselves, even when their parents and teachers don't give them that message. It goes into them. But you think about the fact that if you have immigrated somewhere, you've gone somewhere on a visa, most of the time you need some kind of qualification to be accepted. And so in the TCK world, something like 80% of TCKs have at least one parent with an advanced degree. What they think normal is so warped. 90% of TCKs at least begin university studies. And so when you tell them that only 30% of the Western world has a degree, like the adult population, they just don't believe you. They're like, that can't be right. Because they have this like artificial warped version of normal. Like I've gone to so many international school graduations, and most of the time about a third of the class have the equivalent of straight A's. And you're like, guys, this is not normal.
This is not. No, it's not. And a lot of parents
But they
also
think in their world it is. And so they don't know.
Yeah. Is it, did I read that somewhere that a higher number of TCKs go into higher, like get PhDs or second degrees, or I think I'm and I don't know where I found this, but this I feel like I just read this, that it's this kind of, you have to constantly push for more. And
in the interviews I've done, the number of TCKs who went on to do graduate programs because they literally don't know how to do anything else. They've spent their whole life trained to study, and they suddenly got to the end of the degree and went, I have absolutely no idea how to live as a person. If I do a graduate degree, that gives me a couple more years to work out what on earth I'm going to do next.
It's
and literally multiple people I interviewed, the main reason they did a second degree or a graduate program was to give them a few more years to work out how to human.
Do you think this is to do with the fact that they haven't got one defined home and sort of feel more in flux, or
less about home, more about the fact that when you grow up cross-culturally, you have more inputs into who you are and what your life is. And so there is more unraveling work to do to find yourself. And so it just takes a little bit longer. We do tend to see a bit of a prolonged adolescence in TCKs. It takes them a bit longer to work through the stages of the progression into adulthood. Not because anything's wrong, simply because they've just got more data effectively to work through. So it's pretty common that they haven't really hit that boundary pushing stage until they're actually in their late teens, even early 20s, which can, it's not ideal, but it often means they aren't actually ready to be fully fledged on their own adults when they finish university. So there's actually quite a number of TCKs who end up moving home because they're genuinely not emotionally ready for full-time work yet, because they're still doing some processing. They don't actually, they're not ready yet. And
so their lives have too many layers.
Yeah. And so it's really lovely when I see TCKs who are able to go home and they have parents who support them, but those parents feel like failures, and they're not. They're providing that safe base that their kids need in order to go out into the world when they're ready.
We really need to work so hard at this whole parenting failure, and I just it's such a anyway, you're doing your work, which is great, and we'll get there eventually. And then a whole generation of TCKs will work in that field too, so I'm excited about that.
I mean, like I said, the research we're doing, we're seeing that there is a lot of anxiety and depression, but there's a lot of anxiety and depression in this generation anyway.
Yes.
And these positive experiences, having supportive families and communities, dramatically drops the rates of most of the mental health conditions that we were looking at. And so the best thing we can do is provide that emotional support, provide that community support, provide those spaces where TCKs know that they're loved, know that they're supported, know that they're heard, that they can have their big emotions and those rhythms and routines and that safety.
Yeah.
Emotional safety is so important. Even if it means that we don't always get our assignments done perfectly, or if it means that we take a gap year before university, or it means that we need a mental health day off school, or whatever it is that means.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That emotional safety makes a huge difference long term.
Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. I guess we did another little loop.
We just can't stop talking.
But it's such an important topic, and it's so many people need to hear this, I feel. Yeah, let's end it on just a couple my typical last two questions, and they've got nothing to do with teenagers, or maybe they do. Is there, because I mean, you must be, you're in Australia now, but you must be missing China, or maybe even the US, things from those sort of places that you also called home for a while. Is there anything, when you do miss them, is there anything that you do to feel that connection? Is there anything that you cook, or a movie, or a ritual, something you have to bring those places closer to you?
Cooking's a big one for me, definitely. Dumplings, making dumplings that I boil northern style. That's a huge one for me. And, you know, I have different flavors I associate with different places and different people. Like my husband has a favorite flavor and I have a favorite flavor. And there's the New Year's dumplings, one of my old flatmates from Inner Mongolia used to make only once a year for Chinese New Year, because she was never going to be bothered to make handmade dumplings at any other time of year. And, you know, so I do that for my China fix. And then, you know, from the States, mostly I miss my husband. But, you know, there's music or movies or TV shows mostly. But also food. Like I've learned to do some baking from his sister. And so I'll make some of the stuff that she's taught me to make.
Okay. Oh, so he's American?
He's half Filipino, half American, but US citizen.
Yeah. Okay. And then finally, is there anything, this is what I loved earlier when you said about the oldies, learning new skills. Is there anything new that you're learning?
Well, I'm relearning my watercolors. I haven't painted for years, but I'm out here in the desert and I have a lot of chronic pain and mobility issues. So hiking's not the best, but I'm like, but I can take my watercolors out there and just sit in the beautiful places. So I've been
lovely
picking up the paints again after a while. It's been fun.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation, Tanya. This was amazing. And it was so nice to meet you properly. And yes, like I said, I'll put all the links in the show notes, and for people to get in touch with you if they feel they need help. And yeah, lovely.
Would love that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wow, I'm still loving this conversation so much. I'm recording this outro a few weeks after we spoke, but Tanya's words are still so present in my mind. And as I said in my intro, I felt like someone, well, Tanya, put an arm around me and healed me a bit with what she said. And I hope you loved this as much as I did. And I hope you're running to sign up to Tanya's newsletter and check out her work. She's doing such an amazing job. Aren't we lucky to have people like her to help us on our expat journeys, both as parents and as kids? And with that, I've come to the end of Transcontinental Overload the podcast. From here on, it'll be Transcontinental Overload, the book, the memoir, and welcome to my new podcast. All will be revealed soon. It's not going to be drastically different, of course, because I mean, this is where my passion is, helping families, global families in their journeys and sharing stories. But yeah, the focus is going to be less overload and more how to turn overload into action. A more positive spin, I guess, because I really feel that we need all the positivity we can get in this world. So make sure you subscribe and follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn. And also on Substack. So those are the platforms I'm most active on. On Substack, you will find all my new writing and projects and other ideas, podcast link, etc. My handle is StephXCook, and my publication is called Steph Gets the Boots. As I said, Transcontinental Overload, the website, is going to be exclusively dedicated to the book and how to order the book and all that. You can also find all that on Substack, which is basically my new website. And of course, all links are in the show notes. And with that, I'm saying goodbye on here for now. Look after yourselves, stay happy and healthy. Reach out, get in touch, let me know if you like this episode. Take care and see you next time.